as David said, I'm John Clark. My grandfather was Sergeant Charles John Clark. He was the front gunner in the Wellington that crashed and died here. First of all, I should really say thank you to the friends of St Andrew's Park, especially David and Jenny, for organising this, for making this memorial a reality. I can't say how much it means to me. All this started really with me researching my family tree and looking at my father's side of the family. I grew up with a story in my mind that my grandfather had died in a plane that had hit a barrage balloon, burst into flames. I presumed it was somewhere over the south coast. They were coming back from Germany somewhere. When I talked to my father about this in 2001, he produced a letter from the RAF to my uncle, which said they were on a training flight. They hit a barrage balloon cable at about 2,000 feet. They crashed in the park in Bristol. And that just raised lots of questions in my mind. Why were they over Bristol? Why were they flying so low? What were they training for? So I came to Bristol and I looked in the newspapers for 1941, but nothing was reported. Nothing like this was ever reported during the war. I came to St Andrew's Park that day not really knowing what to look for. I didn't know where the plane had come from, where it had hit the ground. And obviously I was quite sad and disappointed I couldn't find any memorial or any evidence that this had actually happened. So when I got home I put adverts in the Bristol Evening Post, local magazines like Points North magazine, and they sent me stuff that they'd already published, and then people just started to send me accounts of their actions that night, what they'd seen the next day, and the story just sort of put itself together really. Some of the stories I heard were things like there was a man in the park with his girlfriend, and they were sat on a bench around one of the elm trees over there, and the man heard the plane coming, looked over his shoulder, and there it was coming over the houses, and they ran up the top of the park because she lived on Somerville Road, and he came back into the park, and actually the first thing he came across was the rear end of the plane, and he could see the rear gunner in his harness, but he couldn't reach him because he was so high up. And suddenly a lady appeared, Betty Bulls, who lived at number 18 Morris Road next to the church, and together Basil Steerat and Betty managed to get the rear gunner out, and they took him to her house. Her brother, Martin Bulls, came into the park, came up to where we are now, and actually managed to get the pilot out and take him to safety. Other stories came. There was a barrage balloon stationed in the park. One of the air crewmen climbed up on the wing of the aircraft trying to get to presumably one of the pilots, and there was an explosion which threw him off the wing. He was badly burnt. I've only just recently this year managed to contact his family. I'm still looking for information. If anybody knows anything about some of these people, there's a Sergeant George Goodall. I'd love to contact his family. He helped PC Bruce Westlake to rescue the navigator from the plane. Two of the other crew that died, had not managed to contact any of their family. Pilot Officer Kenneth Evans and Sergeant Thomas Lever, and I'd love to make contact with their family and tell them all about it. Somebody else that I did contact, eventually I managed to make contact with the pilot himself, Lawrence Hugh Horton, who is actually still alive. Sadly he can't be here today, he's 89, but I would later like to read out something that he sent me to read. There's lots of people that I've heard of that came into the park to see if they could help, and tried to help or did help. Basil Steerat I've already mentioned, Betty and Martin Bulls, Bruce Westlake and Sergeant Goodall. Alfred Rowlands was the air crewman that climbed onto the wing of the plane. A Home Guard sergeant called Bill Dowler came to the park and tried to rescue someone from the front of the plane. He thought it was the pilot, but it was obvious it was my grandfather, the front gunner, but he couldn't actually get close enough to the plane to get this man out. George Clifford, a local man, a local ambulance driver, and a Corporal Rosser tried to, I think they moved the body of the pilot officer to a place of safety, but the pilot was already dead. If anybody knows any more information about anything, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to put it on the website. My website is www.wellington T2905.co.uk. Once again, I'd like to thank the Friends of St Andrew's Park for making this possible. I'd like to give a special thank you to my wife Azra for looking after my mother so that me and my father could be here today. So I'd like to read Hugh's address that he sent to me. First of all, I would like to thank you for affording me the honour of giving this commemoration address, honouring the memory of the 3 young airmen who were so tragically killed on that fateful night in April 1941, when the Wellington bomber I was piloting crashed and landed in St Andrews Park. Now the time has come to remember these 3 fine young men, and in some way to do justice to their memory. Please accept my sincere apologies for my absence from your commemoration service. My health has not been too good after the damage done by last year's very cold winter, and at 89 I'm not up to travelling anymore. I would like to begin this by expressing my unbounded admiration for the heroic efforts made by citizens of St Andrews Park to rescue us from the burning plane. They were incredibly brave. My own life was saved by a man named Martin Boones, who heroically hauled my unconscious body out of the cockpit and put me in a place of safety. I must also give much praise to John Clark, who went to immense trouble to get all the facts relating to this event and in tracing most of the people involved. I am sure that his grandfather, Charles Clark, would be very proud of him, and I am certain in my own mind still is. I am glad that John's strong desire to see a permanent memorial has eventually been realised. We were all still training to learn our jobs, and because of that very fact we never got to know our colleagues. We were all strangers, and that was the case on this occasion. I had met Pilot Officer Evans, my co-pilot, on about 2 previous occasions, and that was all. The rest of the crew were strangers to me. We were all in advanced training school, and we knew how to perform our relative tasks effectively. We were learning how to work together as a crew, and that was very important and took some time to master. Since I did not know these fine young men personally, I am somewhat of a loss as to how to do proper justice to their memory. This crash has been a source of great sadness all my life, and will continue to be so. As the pilot in charge of the aircraft, I offer the loved ones and friends of the 3 fine young men who perished, and of those who were injured on that dreadful April night in 1941, my unqualified apology for having caused them this deep grief, and trust that totally inadequate as such an expression must be, it may do its part in the healing process. I wish you all God bless. Hugh Horton.